Well, Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life. And it's another sunrise here in Tampa, Florida. Heading back to my backyard. I looked out the window this morning and the lake had this nice purplish color to it. And it's from the clouds reflecting out here. Oh, there's one of my neighbors. He's out here fishing this morning. He doesn't want just fish though. He'll eat the snails too. Oh. Maybe is he talking to me? Telling me I'm too close? So, maybe. You know. Anyway, I got a question here from Notorious Wyvern. Oh. He decided that it was time for him to take off. And he has a question about violence in video games, or aggression, which is similar to another video that I did recently, but different at the same time. He says he used to play a lot of first-person shooters, and no matter which one I played, it seemed that a large portion of the player base was ridiculously aggressive towards other gamers. I'm talking about death threats, hacking threats, racism, sexism, and he says it was even more prevalent in the Call of Duty games. That's interesting. Since moving on from first-person shooters and entering the online communities of MMOs, he finds very few instances of aggression, if any, that are on par with that of Call of Duty and for other first-person shooters. So I was wondering if you found any particular niche or genre or game that had a player base like this. And do you think the problem lies with the player base or with the genre? Well, that's pretty interesting. This is very similar to the other question that we talked about whether or not video games lead people to be violent. And the fact is that no, I do not believe that they do. But what's interesting about this is that I hadn't thought of whether or not types of video games, the type of players and their aggressiveness. And now that I think about it, that when I have played MMOs, that the people in the MMOs were kind, adventurous, and usually helpful, and it was just an all-around really good experience, and a positive one. Sure, there was jerks. There's always griefers, and there was the types of MMOs I like to play. Hopefully, there's PKs in them, player killers, because they're part of the team too. No conflict, no excitement. But when it comes down to first-person shooters and the aggressiveness, I look back at when we had the LAN parties in our store, and we were playing like Quake and Doom 2 and some other multiplayer games that Hexen. Do any of you remember Hexen? Oh my. And we were playing these first-person shooters, and we would all really get pumped up about it. Now, the type of people who were attracted to that were people who liked to, maybe as kids they were fighters in school, they were aggressive, maybe they were even bullies. And but in and most of them, I couldn't see them playing an MMO. I remember we had this one guy that got us in trouble several times when we were doing the LAN parties, because he would just shout at the top of his lungs. We had to put him in a room that was like the beginner's room. I think we had up to 16 people playing on any given game, and we had to put him in the room that we call the beginner room, which was where the new people who were joining us would go before they could get a spot in, say, one of the other rooms in the offices. because he was so loud. He loved to play heavy metal music absolutely at the top volume that his speakers would allow, and then he would shout and yell and, you know, really just cause a lot of noise. And he was great fun to play against, especially when, you know, you'd get a good kill on him. He'd run into your room and he'd be like, "Oh man, I can't believe you got me like that. Great job." And he'd go run back. And then when he'd get a kill on you, he'd come running back in and he'd go like, "How does that taste, buddy?" He was definitely something else. And he was not somebody that I would hang out with, like, I don't know, even going out to dinner as friends or something like that, because he was so intense. Now, he was that way in real life. I mean, not just in the games. And he just was this super intense guy. And, you know, so, you know, getting back to the question, you know, is it the games that make people this way, or is it the people that are this way at the beginning? And, you know, I think that with being around other people that are that way, you certainly get caught up into that, into the yelling back and forth and everything. And it's kind of like when you're watching, say, football, that could be American football or European football, either one, because it applies to both. Do you actually, you know, when you're just watching by yourself, you know, you have a good time. You know, you may be going, yes, you know, whenever a goal is scored, be all excited and stuff. But when you have a bunch of your friends around, are you more boisterous? You know, do you do you speak a lot louder? Do you speak a lot with a lot more excitement and everything? I think that you probably do, and that's just part of being with other people and enjoying each other's company and kind of feeding off of each other. So now, you know, for this these types of games, I think that first-person shooters attract more of an aggressive type. You know, how many women play first-person shooters as opposed to how many women play MMOs? You know, first-person shooters are a more aggressive game. There are women in the games, but it's not at the same level. And in fact, I wonder if I could find stats on that. If I come across stats on that sometime, I'll share that. Because the fact is that the more aggressive games tend to be more male dominated. So anyway, I think that's a great question. I think that people are drawn to those type of games because that's what they are. Just like a hardcore sports fan is drawn maybe more towards sports games. You know, somebody who, say, maybe did military time would be more drawn towards military games, whether it be, you know, like Command and Conquer style, you know, that is, you know, not turn-based strategy, real-time strategy, or whether it's first-person shooter, such as Counter-Strike or Call of Duty, and it just makes sense. So, you know, and I like to play merchants in games. I can't do that in a sports game. I can't do that in a first-person shooter, not typically. Although, so here comes a new game which kind of crosses the lines, which blends things, called War Z. And I think it's thewarz.com. They open in beta on the 15th, and it's a hybrid MMO, first-person shooter, survival game, sandbox game. I've been doing a lot of studying about it. I'm going to be in the game October 15th, and so I'm looking forward to that. It is quite a it's a zombie apocalypse survival game, kind of like DayZ, except it's bigger. and they start out in Colorado is the first map, and I don't know how big the map area is, but that one looks pretty good. In fact, I'll be doing some episodes of the show just on that, because the game looks pretty interesting, and I plan to be in it first day. And of course I'll show you some gameplay, and I'll have a camera on me, and you guys will be able to watch me scream like a little girl. So every time a zombie comes up and tries to chomp on me. But that one sounds exciting. I hope it's fast-paced enough to make good video, because if it's not, then that's going to be kind of boring if I'm doing a bunch of videos on a boring game. So and I don't want it to be boring, and so anyway, there we have it. thewarz.com is what I believe the address is. So anyway, thanks for sending me your questions. You can send them to me in YouTube, and I'm Marky Dragon. Take care.